You think trauma begins with loss, betrayal, rejection. You think it starts in childhood, in pain, in memories you can name. But Otto Rank argued something far darker and more universal. Your first trauma happened before you even had words, before you knew yourself, before you could understand the world. It was the moment you were born. Birth itself, he said, is the primal wound. Imagine the scene. You lived in perfect security, floating in warmth, nourished without effort, surrounded by safety, no hunger, no fear, no separation. And then, suddenly, violently, you were pushed out. The warmth vanished. The air struck your lungs. Light blinded your eyes. Your body screamed. You were ripped from unity into isolation. That was your first experience of life, rupture. Rank called this the trauma of birth. And he believed every fear, every anxiety, every longing for safety echoes back to this original moment. You carry it even now. It hides in your restlessness, in your emptiness, in your search for belonging. You feel it when silence becomes unbearable. You feel it when you fear being alone. You feel it when you seek comfort in others, in addictions, in distractions. This is why you crave return. Return to safety. Return to unity. Return to a world without fear. You seek it in love, in power, in religion, in endless entertainment. You are not just escaping life. You are trying to escape the pain of separation itself. You are trying to go back to the womb, but there is no return. And so the trauma remains, shaping everything you do. You have felt this, that aching emptiness you can't explain, that sense of longing even when life looks full, that quiet fear that something is missing, though you cannot name it. Rank would say, what you are missing is the lost unity of the womb, and the tragedy is that you will spend your life searching for it in places where it can never be found. Think about your fears: fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of death. At the core, they are all variations of the same wound, the wound of separation. When someone leaves you, you don't just lose them. You relive your first loss. When you fear death, you don't just fear the end. You fear the same darkness that swallowed you when you left the womb. Rank showed that these are not separate fears. They are all shadows of the same primal trauma. And think about your desires. Why do you crave intimacy so deeply? Why does love feel like salvation? Because for a moment in another's arms, you feel a faint echo of that original unity. You feel warmth, safety, belonging. You feel like you have returned, but it never lasts. And the cycle begins again. Longing, reaching, losing, despair. The trauma repeats itself in every relationship, every attachment, every heartbreak. This is why silence terrifies you. Because silence feels like the womb's absence. It confronts you with your own aloneness. And this is why you fill your life with noise, with distraction, with endless stimulation. You are running from the emptiness left by your first rupture. But here is the truth Rank revealed. You cannot escape it. The trauma of birth is not an event you can undo. It is the foundation of your psyche. The question is not how to erase it, but how to transform it. For most, the trauma remains hidden, repressed, forgotten. But repression does not erase. It distorts. It leaks out in neuroses, anxieties, compulsions. You think you are chasing love, success, belonging, but you are really chasing the memory of unity. And no matter how much you gain, it is never enough. Because what you seek does not exist in the world outside. It only exists in memory, in the body, in the unconscious. Rank warned that if you do not face this trauma, it rules you. You will spend your life trapped in cycles of longing and despair, chasing illusions, never satisfied. You will mistake temporary comforts for salvation, and you will die still searching for the womb you lost. But he also offered a path of liberation. He argued that by confronting the trauma consciously, by acknowledging it, by accepting separation as the essence of life, you can transform it. The wound becomes the source of creativity, individuality, authenticity. Instead of escaping, you begin to create. Instead of longing for return, you begin to embrace becoming. And this is the cliffhanger Rank leaves us with. What if your deepest wound is also your deepest power? What if the trauma of birth is not just the curse you carry, but the seed of your transformation? In the next part, we will dive into Rank's revelation, how the trauma of birth shapes every fear, every desire, and every attempt at escape. And we will uncover why repressing it leads to endless suffering, while facing it opens the door to freedom. Think of every fear you carry. The fear of being alone, the fear of being rejected, the fear of death. To you, they feel separate. But Otto Rank insisted they are not separate at all. They are all echoes of one wound, the original wound, the trauma of birth. At birth, you were torn from unity. You were separated from the only world you knew, the warm, timeless, protective womb. That first rupture imprinted itself on your body and mind. You inhaled air with a scream. You felt cold, hungry, exposed. You felt the terror of existence before you even knew what existence was. Rank believed this primal terror is never erased. It hides, it mutates, it disguises itself, but it never vanishes, and so your life becomes a series of attempts to deal with it. You repress it, you disguise it, you replay it in relationships, you channel it into ambition. You think you are afraid of ordinary things, but in truth, you are reliving your first fear. This is why rejection hurts so deeply. It is not just about the other person. When they leave, you are thrust back into separation. The wound of birth reopens. The pain feels unbearable because it is not just about now. It is about then, the first moment you were torn away. It is why silence feels so heavy, why solitude sometimes feels like death. Because in silence, you face the same absence you faced at birth. Alone, with no one to comfort you, no one to hold you, you are forced to feel the truth you have run from your whole life. Existence is separation. Rank saw that repression is the mind's first defense. You bury the trauma, you push it into the unconscious, you pretend it never happened. But repression is not erasure, it is distortion. The wound leaks out in anxiety, in restlessness, in compulsions you cannot explain. You wake up anxious without reason. You panic when you feel abandoned. You sabotage yourself when things feel too stable. Why? Because the wound is pushing through. Freud spoke of repression, of hidden desires, of unconscious conflict. But Rank argued Freud overlooked the deepest root. The repression is not only about sexual drives, it is about the trauma of birth itself, the primal separation, the terror of life itself. And this is where neurosis comes in. Rank described neurosis as the refusal to face separation. The neurotic clings to parents, to lovers, to routines, to illusions. They cannot tolerate the feeling of being alone, of being responsible, of standing in existence without protection. And so they construct endless strategies to avoid the trauma. Some seek constant validation. They need others to tell them they are enough, because they cannot face the emptiness inside. Some seek power. They dominate, control, manipulate, trying to build a fortress against separation. Some seek escape through addictions, substances, work, entertainment, anything to numb the unbearable truth. Each of these is not random. They are all defenses against the trauma of birth, but defenses never heal. They only delay. They only multiply the suffering. The more you run from the trauma, the more it pursues you. The more you repress, the louder the unconscious screams. And so life becomes a cycle of escape and anxiety, longing and despair. Rank's revelation was stark. You cannot erase the trauma. You can only transform it. You cannot return to unity. You can only embrace separation as the essence of existence. And here lies the possibility of liberation, because while repression creates neurosis, acceptance creates creativity. When you face the trauma of birth, when you accept that life is separation, something shifts. You stop running, you stop clinging, you stop sabotaging. Instead, you begin to create. You begin to turn the wound into art, into love, into authenticity. Rank saw creativity as the highest response to trauma. The artist, the thinker, the dreamer, they all confront separation by giving birth to something new. Just as you were born, you now give birth. Not to erase the trauma, but to transcend it. Every act of creation is a way of saying, yes, life is rupture, but I will shape it, I will make it mine. But most never reach this point. Most remain trapped in repression. They live in cycles of fear and avoidance, unaware of the original wound that drives them. They think they are anxious about money, relationships, status, but beneath all of it lies the same truth, the trauma of birth. And here is the challenge Rank left us with. Are you willing to face it? Are you willing to stop repressing, stop running, stop hiding? Are you willing to look directly at the wound you carried since the first moment of life? Because only then can you move beyond neurosis. Only then can you transform fear into strength, emptiness into creation, trauma into authenticity. In the next part, we will explore exactly how this trauma shapes your relationships, your creativity, your ambition, even your fear of death. You will see how every corner of your life is touched by this primal wound. And once you see it clearly, you will never live unconsciously again. You may think your relationships are built on love, trust, or attraction. But Otto Rank saw something deeper. He argued that every relationship is shaped by the trauma of birth. The way you attach, the way you fear abandonment, the way you long for intimacy, all of it echoes the primal wound. Remember, birth was your first separation. The first time you lost unity, the first time you were alone. That pain never left you. It hides inside you, shaping how you connect with others. When you cling too tightly to someone, when you fear their absence like death, you are not just fearing their loss. You are reliving the first loss. You are reliving the womb's rupture. This is why love feels both ecstatic and terrifying. On one hand, it gives you a glimpse of reunion. In another's embrace, you feel safe, whole, protected. You feel, for a moment, as if the wound is healed. But at the same time, the fear of losing them becomes unbearable, because losing them feels like reliving the primal separation. Love, for Rank, was always haunted by the trauma of birth. Now think about creativity. Why do humans create art, music, stories? Why do we build, invent, imagine? Rank believed creativity is not just expression. It is compensation. Every act of creation is an attempt to overcome the trauma of birth. You were born once, violently, passively, but when you create, you give birth on your own terms. You transform rupture into possibility. You say, I may have been torn from unity, but I will shape something new from that pain. This is why artists so often wrestle with anxiety, depression, despair. They are closest to the wound, but they are also the bravest because they use it, they face it, they channel it into form. Rank argued that creativity is the healthiest way to deal with the trauma of birth. It doesn't erase the wound, but it redeems it. And what about ambition? Why do you strive, compete, chase success? At the surface, it looks like hunger for achievement, but Rank saw ambition as another echo of the trauma. You felt powerless at birth, small, exposed. That feeling lingers, and so you strive to prove yourself, to overcome weakness, to master the world that once overwhelmed you. Ambition is not only about goals, it is about escaping the helplessness of the womb's rupture. But ambition can also become a trap. If you chase endlessly, if you never feel enough, it may be because you are trying to heal a wound that cannot be healed by success. No trophy, no promotion, no applause can erase the trauma of birth. The emptiness will remain until you face it directly. Then there is avoidance. You know this well. The procrastination, the addictions, the distractions you use to escape silence. Why do you avoid so much? Because silence and stillness bring you face to face with the wound. Alone, without noise, you feel the separation, you feel the emptiness, and it terrifies you, so you drown it in activity, in entertainment, in constant motion. Avoidance is not laziness. It is fear, fear of reliving the trauma. And finally, the fear of death. Rank believed death is the ultimate repetition of the trauma of birth. Birth was your first rupture, separation from unity into existence. Death is the final rupture, separation from existence into the unknown. This is why death haunts you, even when you try not to think about it, because the memory of the first rupture is still alive inside you. Death feels like a return to that same darkness, that same terror of separation. But here is the paradox. The trauma that causes your deepest fear is also the seed of your deepest power. Because when you recognize how it shapes your relationships, your creativity, your ambition, your avoidance, even your fear of death, you are no longer its prisoner. You begin to see clearly. You begin to live consciously. Rank insisted that awareness of the trauma does not destroy you. It transforms you. When you see how it shapes love, you can choose love authentically without clinging. When you see how it drives ambition, you can pursue goals consciously without illusion. When you see how it fuels avoidance, you can face silence with courage. And when you see how it colors death, you can live more fully, knowing the wound is not an end, but a beginning. In the next part, we will reach the climax. We will explore how facing the trauma of birth directly can liberate you, turning fear into creativity, separation into authenticity, rupture into meaning. And we will see practical ways to carry this awareness into your daily life, so you stop escaping and start creating, because the trauma you were born with does not have to be your prison. It can be your path to freedom. The trauma of birth is universal. You did not choose it. You could not prevent it. You were thrown into life with a scream, torn from unity, forced into existence. That rupture marked you. It has echoed through every fear, every longing, every relationship since. But Otto Rank's brilliance was not only in naming the wound, it was in showing that the wound could become your path to freedom. You cannot return to the womb. You cannot erase the rupture, but you can transform it. You can face the trauma consciously and turn it into creativity, authenticity, strength. The very thing that once enslaved you can become the thing that liberates you. So how do you begin? The first step is acknowledgement. Stop running. Stop pretending the emptiness is not there. Admit it. I feel the wound. I carry the trauma. Most people spend their lives burying it under distractions, relationships, ambitions, but the wound remains. Acknowledgement does not make it larger, it makes it clearer, and what is clear can be faced. The second step is creation. Rank insisted that creation is humanity's greatest answer to trauma. When you create, you do not erase the wound, you redeem it. You were born once, passively, violently, but when you create, you give birth actively, to art, to ideas, to projects, to love. You transform rupture into expression. Every act of creation whispers, yes, life is separation, but I can shape it. I can make it meaningful. The third step is courage in relationships. Stop clinging. Stop demanding others heal the wound for you. They cannot. No partner, no friend, no parent can erase the trauma of birth. If you place that burden on them, you will only repeat the cycle of longing and disappointment. Instead, choose relationships from freedom, not from desperation. Love becomes authentic when it is not an escape, but a celebration. Two beings, both wounded, both free, choosing each other without illusion. The fourth step is silence. This is the hardest. To sit alone without distraction, to feel the wound fully, to let the emptiness rise. At first it will terrify you. You will want to run. But if you remain, something shifts. You realize the wound is not infinite. You realize you can bear it. And in that moment, the trauma loses its grip because what is faced no longer controls you. The fifth step is acceptance of death. The trauma of birth is mirrored in the fear of death. Both are ruptures, both are passages into the unknown. But Rank argued that once you face the primal wound, death itself becomes less terrifying. You realize you have already survived rupture once. And if life itself was born from trauma, perhaps death is not the end, but another transformation. The sixth step is responsibility, to accept that you alone must shape your life. The womb is gone. No one is coming to rescue you, and that is frightening. Yes, but it is also power, because if no one else holds responsibility, it means you do. You are not a passive victim of the wound. You are the creator who decides what to do with it. Responsibility is freedom in its truest form, and the final step is meaning. Rank believed trauma, once faced, can become the foundation of meaning. You were born into rupture, yes, but meaning is created in how you respond. Do you hide, escape, conform? Or do you live authentically, courageously, creatively? The wound is universal, but the response is yours. And in that response lies your uniqueness. This is the paradox. The trauma you were born with can be the very thing that awakens you. The wound can become the path. The rupture can become the beginning of freedom. Imagine living this way, no longer clinging to others to heal you, no longer chasing ambition as a substitute for unity, no longer drowning yourself in distractions. Instead, creating, loving authentically, embracing silence, shaping meaning. You would not be free of the trauma, but you would be free through it. Rank's legacy is not despair, it is empowerment. He did not deny the wound, he revealed its potential. He showed that the first trauma, the one you carried since birth, does not have to be a curse. It can be your greatest source of strength if you choose to face it. So I ask you now, will you keep running from the trauma, or will you transform it? Will you let it enslave you, or will you let it awaken you? Write it now in the comments. I choose awareness. And if you are ready to keep walking this path, subscribe. Because this journey is only beginning. The trauma you were born with is not the end of you. It is the beginning of you.